Welcome to Let's ComBinate. I'm Subi. I've spent my whole career in pharma and medtech, mostly in quality. And in this episode, we're continuing our ICH quality series with ICH Q7. ICH Q7 focuses on API, or active pharmaceutical ingredient, and it's a little bit different than all the other guidelines that we've talked about in the past, in that it's not specifically focused on a subject area like stability or impurities or pharmacopoeias. It's focused on a stage of manufacturing, which is API. ICH Q7 is a little bit different in that it's all-encompassing. For APIs, ICH Q7 covers quality systems and manufacturing, validation, documentation, CMOs and suppliers, distribution, and it even goes through things like considerations for APIs for clinical trials. So it's basically the full GMP framework for API. So instead of putting together slides, I wanted to go through the document itself because it can be quite dense and just spot check a few areas that I think are important for you to understand if it's your first time navigating it. So let's get into it. Starting with the scope of the guideline, this guide applies to APIs for human medicinal products, and it applies up to the point immediately prior to an API being sterile. Sterilization and aseptic processing is covered under the drug product GMPs. And what that means is that Q7 is focused on API manufacturing, not the finished drug product. And it's important to understand when full GMPs apply and when they don't. So because it applies prior to sterilization and after that you're getting into full GMP and aseptic processing, those stages are important to understand. And that's why the guide has a table in it that describes some more detail around that, which we'll get to in a second. One of the important foundational concepts in the guideline is around the definition of an API starting material. This is one of the most important concepts because it's not really a set standard for all products, and you need to have a product-based, process-based understanding of when GMP begins, and it needs to be clearly defined. So the section that we're talking about here is this section where it says an API starting material is a raw material, intermediate, or an API that's used for production of an API. And an API can be, and the company should designate and document the rationale for the point at which the production of the API begins. In other words, this isn't something that's fixed for all products. It's something that needs to be justified based on your process. Another thing that is important to highlight is that ICH Q7 doesn't apply to the steps prior to the introduction of the defined starting material into the API manufacturing process. The stringency of the GMP in API manufacturing should increase as the process proceeds from the early API steps to the final manufacturing steps, purification and packaging. The last thing that I wanted to highlight is that for physical processing, non-chemical processing of APIs, like granulation, coating, or physical manipulation of particle size, this happens a lot when you're talking about extended release type products where the particle size is really critical from an efficacy standpoint. Those should be conducted to the standards of ICH Q7 as well. Now, transitioning into this table here, table one of the most important visuals in ICH Q7 because it illustrates increasing GMP requirements as you move further down the manufacturing process. So if you're talking about basic chemical manufacturing synthesis, where you have production of the API, moving to the production of the starting material, to introducing the API into the process, production of the intermediates, isolation, purification, physical processing, and packaging, it clearly delineates that GMPs start after the production of the API starting materials. It starts when it's introduced to the API manufacturing process. It's not cut and dry. When you get into different API types of manufacturing, you see different starting points for when GMPs begin. But what's important to look at is where most products sit, which is chemical manufacturing or biotech. The lines are more or less close or the same, but increasing GMP requirements as you're moving through. And the gray in this section is when it's important to consider GMPs. So earlier steps have less stringent controls, and as you move towards the final API, the expectation is that your GMPs get tighter and tighter. Now, moving into the next section, quality, it highlights this sentence here, and I did a whole video on quality responsibility, but quality should be the responsibility of all persons involved in manufacturing. It also highlights that there needs to be a standalone quality unit. You need to have an independent quality unit that's separate from production, that can be in different forms, as it says here. It can be in the form of separate QA, QCs, or a single individual group, depending on the size and structure of the organization. Part of their responsibilities is releasing the intermediates and the APIs. Each manufacturer, this is where we get into QMS requirements, each manufacturer should establish, document, and implement an effective system for managing quality. And if you're looking at this thinking, duh, because you've spent most of your career in finished drug product manufacturer, what you need to realize is that this is not related to finished drug product. This is way more upstream. This is something that is important to be defined because they're not at the stage where they're doing finished product. So here, basically, they're defining what the QMS requirements are for an API manufacturer. And I would draw a parallel here to ICH 15378, which has all of the requirements for primary packaging for medicinal products. This is kind of like that, where it goes upstream and shows you specifically what are the QMS requirements. Now, I wanted to move to section 8, which focuses on production and process controls, because this is kind of where ICH becomes real, and this is where, your controls actually show up in your process. So it has requirements like if a material is subdivided for later use in production, the container receiving the material should be suitable and should be so identified. The following information is available. Traceability requirements, weighing, measuring, or subdividing operations should be witnessed or subjected to an equivalent control verification. Other critical activities should be witnessed or subjected to an equivalent control. Actual yields should be compared with expected yields, and any deviation should be documented and explained. Critical deviations should be investigated. There's time limits like excursions. The other sections that I wanted to highlight here are 831, 830 to 832. In process sampling and controls, that's highlighted in section 8.3. Your in-process controls aren't static. They depend on where you are in the process and how much variability is introduced. So the acceptance criteria and type and extent of the testing can depend on the nature of the intermediate or API being manufactured. Less stringent in-process controls may be appropriate early, where tighter controls are expected as you move further on in the process. The next section I wanted to highlight is section 12, which focuses on validation. Your validation focuses on your critical parameters and attributes, not necessarily everything that's in the process. So the critical parameters attributes should normally be identified during the development stage or from historical data, and the ranges necessary for the reproducible operations should be defined. A quick aside here, when ICH Q7 first came out, there was no guideline on the development of APIs. This is focused on manufacturing of API. There should be. ICH Q11, which we'll get to in a few weeks, where the development piece is focused on identifying process parameters, CQAs, defining API in terms of the critical product attributes as captured in ICH Q11. The next section that I think is really important is around the different approaches for process validation. Perspective is the preferred validation approach, but there are also other approaches that can be used, like concurrent or retrospective validation. And it highlights some of the situations where those may be used. Another critical element in API QMS requirements is change control, where you need to have a formal change control system established to evaluate all changes that could impact the production and control of the API. You need to have written procedures. Change control, broadly speaking, in pharma is what keeps everything from falling apart. So you need to have a formal change control system. Every change needs to be assessed for impact to the quality of your API. And you need to have a process for how you classify changes, because the level of testing, validation, and documentation needed to justify those changes is really important. The last section that I wanted to highlight is around, now what's really interesting is that ICH Q7 also talks about contract manufacturers, includes contract test labs in that category. And it says that labs need to adhere to the guide. It says that CMOs need to be evaluated by whoever holds the authorization. It also says that contract manufacturers or labs need to be evaluated by whoever owns the API to make sure that there's GMP compliance in place. You need to have a written and approved contract or agreement that includes responsibilities, quality measures. The contract should allow the entity that owns the API to audit the facility. And where subcontracting is allowed, the entity responsible, and where subcontracting is allowed, the CMO should not pass any of its activity to a third party without the entity who's responsible for the API giving them prior approval. Manufacturing and records need to be kept at the site where the activity occurs, and changes to process, equipment, test methods, specs, or contractual requirements can't be made without the entity that's responsible for the API being informed and approving the change. Agents, brokers, traders, distributors, repackers, relabels are also captured in this guideline. It speaks to biotech manufacturing, like APIs manufactured by cell cultural fermentation. The last important section was API for clinical trials. Not all controls outlined in the 18 sections previous are appropriate for manufacture of new API for investigation use. Section 19 provides some of the thinking around which elements are required. There's more flexibility in terms of the documentation and process during early development, and full process validation is expected because the process is still evolving and the process is still being understood. Section 19 outlines the specific elements that are expected. It's kind of like ICH Q7 Lite that's focused on API for clinical trials, because there are some repeat sections like quality equipment. All of these are a repeat of all the previous sections. It highlights which specific elements you need to have in place for clinical trials. If you take anything away from ICH Q7 and some of the content that we went through, it's that ICH Q7 isn't really binary. It scales based on where you are in the process and how close you are to the final API, or the API being sterilized or being introduced into aseptic manufacturing. If you're working in combination products, it's really important to understand some of these drug principles and where the drug GMPs start, some of the critical concepts, and how it scales. With that, I will see you in the next episode. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment on the video or shoot me an email at subi@letscombinate.com, and I'll see you next time.